Welcome to the Silicon Valley Clean Energy Board meeting of May 11th, 2022. We'll do a little organization here. We are doing our first hybrid meeting, and we have 4 members on the dais this evening, and then we have members of the board on the Zoom meeting. And for those in the chamber this evening, this is our first time using the panels here. You have a screen which will show what staff wants to present, as well as the Zoom. And then if you want to speak, please use the green light mic on button and then turn it off as appropriate when you finish. Okay, anyone using their own laptop here in the chamber, please be sure that it is muted on Zoom, and also the computer sound audio is also muted. Okay, and I think that takes care of the basics. So, on to our meeting this evening. In accordance with the California Government Code 59953E, in consideration of the coronavirus, members of the Silicon Valley Clean Energy Board of Directors and staff have the option to participate in this meeting by teleconference. Members of the public may also attend this meeting in person or observe this meeting electronically by accessing the meeting via the instructions provided on our webpage. Public comments can be sent in advance to the meeting via email to up to 3 hours before the meeting begins. The board clerk, Andrea Pisano, at andrea.pisano@svcleanenergy.org, and they will be distributed to the board of directors. The public will also have an opportunity to provide comments during the meeting. What we'll do procedurally is we will have comments from those in the audience here live. We will then go to anyone who has sent in a request to speak, and we will be followed by anyone who has a raised hand from the attendees wishing to speak. The public may provide comments on any matter listed on the agenda. Speakers are customarily limited to 3 minutes each. However, the board chair may increase or decrease the time allotted to each speaker based on the number of speakers, the length of the agenda, and the complexity of the subject matter. Speaking time will not be decreased to less than 1 minute. And with that, may we have a call to order, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Roll call. We'll go ahead and begin with those joining us in person. Chair Gibbons?
Here.
Director Willie?
Here.
Mekachuk?
Present.
Klein?
Here.
Hilton? Director Hilton?
Here. Sorry.
Thank you. No worries. Director Flagger? Here. Schmidt?
Here.
Syok?
Here.
Thank you. Matichak?
Here.
Thank you. Walia?
Here.
Lee?
Lee present.
Great, thank you. And I will note that currently we have Directors Martinez Beltran and Director Chua absent, but we do have a quorum.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you all for joining us, and look forward to having an exciting first meeting of a hybrid format. Thank you for all your patience in helping us get through this test run. Thank you. So this evening, we will begin with public comment on matters not listed on the agenda. The public may provide comments on any matter not listed on the agenda, provided that it is within the subject matter of the jurisdiction of Silicon Valley Clean Energy. Speakers are customarily limited to 3 minutes, and speaking time will not be decreased to less than 1 minute. And I have attendees, and I see no hands raised. Madam Clerk, are there any hands from your perspective?
Chair.
Thank you. We will then close that portion of the meeting and go to the first of our items this evening, which is the consent calendar, items 1A through 1K. Is there any member of the board wishing to pull any item for further discussion or offer a motion?
I'll offer a motion to accept the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Director Mekachuk and seconded by Director Willie. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, thank you. Chair Gibbons,
Aye.
Director Willie,
Aye.
Makachuk,
Aye.
Klein,
Aye.
Hilton,
Aye.
Liger, Schmidt,
Aye.
Sayok,
Aye.
Matichak,
Yes.
Walia,
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Thank you, and that carries with Directors Martinez Beltran and Chua absent.
Thank you all for that. We will now move to item 2 this evening, which is the CEO report. This is a discussion, and we will have CEO Balachandran.
Thank you, Chair Gibbons. I'd like to start the CEO report by having Pamela Leonard address the board on the activities we undertook for Earth Day and our 5-year anniversary. She'll then conclude by introducing our first new employee of the 2 that we have to introduce you today.
Yes, good evening, directors. Very pleased to be here in person with you for the first time in a while. I'm Pamela Leonard, the communications manager, and I just want to thank all of you and a special thanks to the city of Cupertino for sharing the stage with us literally on the Earth and Arbor Day Festival that was held on April 23rd. SVCE was back in the community. It was the great return of in-person Earth Month, as we like to refer to it, events. And Andrea's just pulled up some photo highlights. We had a lot of great community engagement. After a couple of years of not being in the community, it was amazing to hear the increased awareness of customers. Oh yeah, you're on our electricity bill. Also asking questions about heat pump heating and cooling systems and heat pump water heater rebates. So it was really just great to get back out there. We received a certificate of recognition, the photo in the lower left, from Congressmember Ro Khanna. Chair Gibbons was able to make some remarks, as well as Director Willie. And we were also that same day at, Garish was at a ribbon cutting event for the Milpitas Community Energy Resilient Solar and Storage Project that has come online for their community center and senior center, which is a project that SVCE helped fund with the Community Energy Resilience Program and the COVID relief funding. So a lot of great celebratory activities, really appreciated the induction cooking demos as well. And again, for the city to accommodate us and for us to have been all over the place from Milpitas and Mountain View down to events in Morgan Hill over the course of a couple of weekends.
Thank you. I think all of the board members that were able to attend the events here in Cupertino and elsewhere across our constituent cities was a marvelous opportunity and a great celebration of all that has been accomplished by Silicon Valley Clean Energy. And again, thank you to the city of Cupertino for making it such a special celebration. And also Congressman Khanna for having the commendation and recognition from the federal level was really very special. So thank you for all of that.
And I think I'll go ahead and move into a new employee intro as well. For those of you who have not seen me outside of a screen, I'm expecting child number 2. And so I will be going on maternity leave in mid-June. And I'm really excited that Beth Trenchard is available to help out our team in an interim role to support a lot of the functions that I lead for our communications and community relations. And she was available again. She was with us in 2020 when I had my first kid, and she was instrumental in getting our eHub resources and tools launched at that time. And I'll let her share a bit about her background, which makes her very well qualified to help us out.
Oh, thank you, Pam, and good evening. As Pam shared, my name is Beth Trenchard, and I'll be backfilling for her while she's out. And this is my second time around. It's a privilege to be back and to be part of such a passionate team that has had and will continue to have a really big impact reducing emissions, educating, and providing electrification solutions. It's inspiring, and I am thrilled to be just a little part of it. A bit about myself, a factoid. Between my husband, daughter, and myself, we've either lived or worked in almost every Silicon Valley clean energy service area, with the exception of the unincorporated area, only because I'm kind of fuzzy on exactly what that is. I'm an East Bay native, go A's, and I have an undergrad from San Jose State University and an MBA from Santa Clara University. I've spent a lot of years working in Silicon Valley. My first job was in Sunnyvale at Atari, but I spent most of my time at GE, at the time there were multiple subsidiaries in the area, and then Apple. I was at Apple for 10 years. After I had my daughter, I wanted a bit more flexibility, so I began consulting for Oracle and Apple. And then I completely pivoted when I couldn't handle the travel anymore, and I became the executive director of a health services nonprofit. I've served on several nonprofit boards, I've served on 2 school boards, and I ran operations for a renewable startup, which is where I was introduced to Monterey Bay Community Power, now SVCE, where I was focused on programs and anything else that needed doing. Truly, I feel fortunate to be able to spend my day supporting a mission that I care deeply about with such a dedicated, gifted, and truly creative group of people. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Welcome back. As you know, we have a wonderful organization of people that will work and assist you in anything that you need, and don't hesitate to contact the board as you need that would be wonderful. And for the time being, you can now say you're doing the unincorporated Santa Clara County because they are part of our territory. So we solved that problem for you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Beth. I would also like to introduce another new employee, and that's Damari Weber. She joined at the end of April as a regulatory and compliance manager. She will be working for Maren Wenzel and in Monica's group. So, Damari, would you please introduce yourself to the board?
Great. Hi, I'm Demi Weber. My full name is Demery Weber, and I'm really looking forward to working with all of you. It's great to meet you. I spent over 9 years with PG&E in progressively responsible roles, my last being a senior risk and compliance analyst with the energy procurement, risk compliance and reporting team. I also had 6 years with the city and county of San Francisco, and my regulatory and compliance background there was at the San Francisco Ethics Commission, where I was responsible for the Statement of Economic Interest program and collected forms from 600 members of boards and commissions. I have also sat on some boards in my lifetime, and I am a San Francisco native. I'm currently living in South San Francisco, but I am thinking of a move to the East Bay because of the housing market. And let's see, I am a pandemic mother. So similar to Pamela and some employees here, I've just experienced motherhood during the pandemic, and it's been such a wonderful and interesting experience. I'm really happy to be part of this community, and I'm going to help the power supply team with as much as I can. Thank you.
Welcome, DeMarie. And as you have already experienced, I'm sure, we have a wonderful organization and team here, and we're all here to support and work with you. So thank you for joining us, and we congratulate you on your new motherhood and possibly a move. We'll see. You'll have to keep us posted. Thank you.
Chair Gibbons, that's the end of my report. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to item number 3. This is to delegate the authority to the Chief Executive Officer to participate in PG&E's voluntary allocation market offer renewable energy credit
We can't hear.
Chair Gibbons, you're on mute.
No, I'm not. Let me try this.
You're coming through now. Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you. All right, I'll try that long-winded statement again. This is item number 3, which is to delegate authority to the Chief Executive Officer to participate in PG&E's voluntary allocation market offer renewable energy credit solicitation and transaction for a portion of Silicon Valley Clean Energy's load ratio share allocation. And that long-winded statement will be explained by staff with an introduction by CEO Belachandran.
Thank you, Chair Gibbons, members of the board. Subsequent to us posting the staff report, we've had further discussions internally, and we'd like to change the recommendation from taking a portion of what's being offered to us by this program to the maximum amount that we can take. So our senior manager of power supply, Charles Grinstead, will provide you both an overview of why we are taking this, why we are asking for it, and the timeline too. So Charles.
Great, thanks, Girish. Great, thanks, Andrea. So today I'd like to introduce a new portfolio optimization mechanism called voluntary allocation and market offer, otherwise known as VAMO. This new mechanism gives LSCs the option to contract for allocations of PG&E's REC portfolio. Although PG&E's RECs provide certainty in meeting compliance requirements, they contain resources like biomass and biogas that have high emissions factors, as well as system-backed PCC 2s and 3s that we don't typically transact for. Knowing this, we are still requesting for board authorization to elect up to 25% of our RPS portfolio, should we need to, given the delays we've been seeing on bringing in new resources to the market. So next slide. And so, as I mentioned, VAMO was authorized by the CPUC as part of the PCA proceeding. The voluntary allocation contracts begin in January 2023. The commitment, we need to make a commitment by June 10th, 2022 to PG&E, and the contract term is a minimum of 10 years. So these are underlying contracts that can be utility-owned generation, but also contracts that have a term of greater than 10, could be 20, 30 years. Really is at the, it is really determined at the time that the contract was signed. Next slide, please. And so we take a look at the PG&E portfolio in which we would be electing to. And so we find that 84% of PG&E's portfolio comes from PCC1 resources, solar and PV wind, but there is a portion that comes from biogas and biomass resources. So these are resources that have slightly high emissions factors. We wouldn't necessarily want to have these in our portfolio. We prefer wind and solar. However, it is available to us. We want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence and understanding what the portfolio mix is. Next slide, please. And so, we've assessed our portfolio need, and we're anticipating that we could elect up to 100% of PG&E's VAMO share, of our PG&E VAMO share, which translates to about 25% of our own renewable portfolio standard. And so we're requesting authorization for this amount. We don't necessarily anticipate we'll need it, but still just taking into account uncertainties in the market and with new resources coming online, we'd like to request that full amount. And so just getting into more details here, there may be some out-of-state RPS resources that are PCC2 and unbundled RECs, which are PCC3s. And then, as I stated before, biomass and biogas resources, which are limited from an annual compliance standpoint and carry potential greenhouse gas emissions. The quantity, as I mentioned, is they're increments of 10%, but we're requesting authorization up to 100. So we would use that as a sort of a planning insurance for our portfolio. The price is based on a PCA market price benchmark, which will vary year to year. So what the CPUC does is they compile they'll do data requests from every LSE and come up with a weighted average price for RPS in that year. And so the term of this voluntary allocation could be up to 30 years, just depends on the PG&E RPS portfolio. Next slide, please. So just continuing to look at our portfolio, we do have these SB 100 and SB 350 requirements. So in line 1 here, we're looking at, what is our renewable portfolio standard relative to retail sales. So in the first tranche here, it's 40%, then 50, and then 60. Of that 40 and 50 and 60%, we have to have at least 65% coming from long-term contracts. And so if you were to multiply those two lines together, you'll get to row 3, so 26, 33, and 39% of our RPS portfolio coming from long-term resources. And number 4 is our current estimate of where our portfolio sits today. And so, comparing the two lines, we have a relatively healthy length of position, though, there may be risks in our portfolio like contract start date extensions or other factors that may influence the percentage there. So, but VAMO really provides an insurance against those resources falling through. Next slide, please. And so what we're requesting today is authorization for Girish to be able to sign the voluntary allocation up to our recommended amount, utilizing the Pacific Gas and Electric EEI, or the Master Power Purchase Agreement. So the CEO will only exercise the delegated authority should he deem it necessary to meet long-term procurement directives for SVCE's full VAMO allocation, which is equivalent to 25% of our RPS. And then, of course, we'll always report back to the board in a timely fashion for any transactions which we execute. And I believe that is the last slide.
Thank you, Charles.
Thank
and so with that, are there any questions from the board here in the chamber? Yes.
This is Brian Mekachuk. What's the downside to doing this? That's my question. Where are our risks here? What can go wrong?
Yeah, so I believe the downsides here is if we just don't need it. If all of our resources come online in a timely fashion when they say they will, then we could be taking on excess length, and then we'll have to go out and sell it. So in a way, you buy insurance and you're not really sure if you ever need it, but in the sour event that you do, you're glad that you have it. So it really becomes a portfolio optimization exercise of taking it and then having to resell it on the market.
And as a follow-on, if we were to resell it, we would resell it for less than what we're buying it for. So there's a financial risk to us.
There could be that financial risk, yes. However, the market price benchmark is based off of trades in the market. So any trades that we would make have an influence on that price. So in many ways, you're not terribly harmed by taking the allocation and reselling it.
So if I may, I'll do a follow-up question, which it's my understanding that we don't have to use any of this. And it's going to be circumstantial when we decide to use it. Am I correct on that?
It would be partially circumstantial. So we're continuing to do evaluations of our portfolio. So we have until June 10th to make that determination of some percentage. So if we evaluate our risk and determine that we need 10 to 20, 30%, or even the full amount, we'll make that determination and report it back to the board. But there are ways for us to stage the allocations so that we don't take everything this year. We have another opportunity next year to elect for more.
So let me try and ask a follow-up question as well. Although we're authorizing the CEO to sign on to 25%, it could be 10%. And I think that's the flexibility that we're offering. And we can also decide not to do any of it. But you're phrasing this, which I think is intentional, as insurance, which is different than a hedge?
It's more or less a hedge against uncertainty. And if you want to think about it as insurance, it could be interpreted that way. I think given the nature of bringing resources online in today's market, we need a little bit more flexibility in meeting our compliance requirements. And so, you know, we'll make those decisions and in the best interest of where our resources are currently projected to come online. Maybe this is best for a follow-up discussion as well, I think.
Okay.
Just in how we're evaluating for the project, for the product itself.
So it's when I say it's circumstantial, it's situational to how by the end of June, or whatever date it is in June, that staff determines what is the best alternative for the organization to take advantage of this.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we have a question from Director Willie.
Yeah, I'm a little bit confused. So we've got all our customers with an aggregate demand, and yet our power agreements are not, they're coming online, but they're not all online yet. And so we're still supplying the full amount to all our customers. And why would this not be directly facilitating that aggregate demand in renewable energy right away? I mean, all our power contracts are not online, and yet if PG&E actually has renewable energy available and we can purchase it, that's where I kind of get a little bit confused.
Yeah, I think the question is, you know, if it's available, why wouldn't we take it? I think there are other alternatives in the market where we don't have to elect to take biomass and biogas resources as well as PCC 2s and 3s. So we believe that the alternatives are better in the market. We can pick resources that better serve our portfolio. So PCC 2s and 3s are, you know, system-backed resources. They're not necessarily lined up with meter generation. So we'd like to avoid those as much as possible. So we look at this as sort of an inferior product. You know, had we maybe gotten our way perhaps with the VAMO allocation itself, we could select resource types out of that allocation and pull them out into our portfolio. This is really just a matter of choosing and having a preference for resource technologies.
So in other words, it's not this quality product that we would typically buy.
Yep, that's correct.
Thank you, that helps.
Director Makachuk?
Yes. I've got another question, and perhaps you could put that slide back on that has the percentage that shows that we are at something like 60%, but if that doesn't work, then we're going to drop to 25?
Not quite.
Or there's the slide. Sorry, 37.6, and then we've got to be above 26%. So we're entering into this agreement so that if something doesn't come online that will contribute to the 37.6%, we at least will stay above the 26%. Do I understand that correctly?
And I think, Charles, you're going to need to explain the chart a little bit better.
Sure. Yep. So, you know, our state mandated RPS is evaluated over the 3-year period there, so 21 through 24. Of that, 40% has to come from 65%, has to be our long-term contracts, so 65% of that 40%. And so that benchmark number is 26% of our RPS portfolio coming from long-term resources. So when we total up all of our long-term contracts, we hit 37.6%. And so, you know, that 37.6% number may have some contracts that may fall out. They may move their compliance start date to 2025 to 2027 or even further than that. So we have to anticipate those shifts, and the VAMO allocation can help meet that 26% requirement.
So if we've entered into a contract that is supposed to come online and it doesn't come online, are there financial penalties for the supplier of that energy?
Yes, there are. And the penalties are about $50 a megawatt hour, so they are substantial. So, obviously, as we're planning our portfolio, we'd like to try to avoid that as much as possible. It's a very, very steep penalty.
Steep penalty for the seller, not for us, correct?
Excuse me. Chair Gibbons, I think it's a different question.
It is, yes.
So Charles, he's asking about supplier delay. What penalty will the supplier face? But there's both. Yeah, can answer both.
So the supplier, they face development and development security issues. So they post a certain amount of money to us, and that's sort of their stake in the game to bring that resource online. So if they miss those compliance deadlines by enough, then they not only take on mark-to-market risk, but also they could potentially lose their development security. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and I see Director Walia.
Thank you, Chair Gibbons. One, I am going to request a little more clarification in that table. I'm still not quite there, to be very honest. And the second, just a very layperson's kind of question. So a consumer in my city asks, you promised me clean energy is going to be supplying me clean power, so I'm getting it from them. But wait a minute, now SVCE is going to be buying 25% of that power from PG&E. And that may be because I'm not quite following this, but I would like to understand that as well from a consumer's perspective. Thank you.
So I'm going to take a stab at this. So this is what I think. So Charles, if I'm wrong, help me. The first line is what we're obliged to do for RPS compliance over the 3-year period. Second line is the state mandated percentage of line 1. So 65% of 40% mathematically comes to line 3, which is 26%, right? Charles?
Yep, that's correct.
And what the line 4 is saying is, currently, we now have under contract a total of 37.6%. So we're exceeding our state mandate of 26% by 11.6%. So that's why having the opportunity to buy the PG&E power if and when needed, if our 37.6 goes below the 26%.
Okay, that's helpful. So we are already exceeding the expectation as we are into contracts, as Director Mekachuk pointed out. That's why I wanted to make sure that I'm following this correctly. So we are expected to exceed, and yet we want to going back to my second question, from a consumer's perspective, now Clean Energy wants to enter into a contract with PG&E for 25% if we need to buy. Girish, maybe you can help me there.
Yeah. I'm going to reset the conversation because Charles made this point. So I'm going to reset this. 37.6 is what we've just signed contracts for. It's not generating electricity. Okay, so this board has signed 13 contracts, long-term renewable contracts, to comply with what rows 1 and 2 say. So, but those have just been signed. There's only one of those contracts that's generating power today.
What percentage is that, Girish?
That's I think 6%. A few more are going to come online this year. There's a wind contract that'll come online in July. There's a geothermal contract that's also going to come online this year. The basic point of our recommendation is, with COVID and supply chain disruptions, with the Department of Commerce tariff circumvention that has put a chill on the entire PV business in the country, contracts are being delayed and terminated across the country. We may not hit that 37.6. So the signed contracts that we have may not actually get to power being generated. So then going to your, so that's the whole point of this power that we could buy from PG&E is power that PG&E had already purchased for our customers when our customers were PG&E's customers. So we are paying for that already through the PCIA. And over the last 3 years, the entire industry in California has come together to say, we are paying for it. We would also like the option to use those renewable contracts you have, PG&E, for our compliance needs. So it's taken about 3 years to create this product that's in front of us today. If all the contracts the SVCE board had approved were going to come to fruition, and we had a high degree of confidence, we wouldn't be coming to you with this. But things have changed since 2018 and 2019 when we entered into these contracts. COVID, supply chain issues, and the more recent Department of Commerce investigation. So this is an option for us to fill in the gap if that 37.6 falls below 26. This gets to, I'm going to answer your question, the second part of your question about the customer side. We've promised our customers 100% carbon-free energy. That's what they're going to be getting, regardless of where it comes from. We're going to be buying the renewable products from PG&E that I should say are mostly carbon-free. It's mostly solar and PV, but there is some biogas. It's 100% renewable, but not 100% carbon-free. So for all practical purposes, from your residents' standpoint, we're just swapping out one kind of product for another kind of product. And the reason we are swapping it out is if we don't line up these resources, we could face penalties up to $50 a megawatt hour from the PUC. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. Girish, I really appreciate you taking the time to walk me through that. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that conversation on a topic that is complex for all of us. And with that, I see no more questions from the board. We will go to the public and see if we have any questions from the public. Are there any questions from the audience here in the room? I see none. And I have one raised hand from an audience on Zoom. Mr. Carney? Do we need to unmute him? Just a moment, please.
He's been unmuted.
Okay. Mr. Carney, we should be able to hear you. Can you speak?
Yes. Can
There
you
we
hear
go.
me now?
Yes, thank you.
Super. So thank you, Chair Gibbons. I had a chance a few weeks ago to sit down with Monica Padilla and learn about some of these challenges that Mr. Balachandran just talked about. And it really is a perfect storm of supply chain issues, increased state requirements, and Most of you know that I have led an organization for many years called Carbon Free Mountain View. That was one of the organizations that helped set up SVCE. And Carbon Free Mountain View was and remains very proud of the fact that SVCE has chosen to procure 100% carbon-free energy to the greatest extent possible. And I'm sure that it will continue to do so. I think the organization deserves to have the flexibility needed to respond to these various challenges, really almost crises, not just challenges. And so if I had a say in this matter, I would be highly supportive of the staff's request to provide the flexibility to purchase up to 100% of the VAMO. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. I am looking to see if there are any other hands raised. I see none. And with that, we will bring it back to the board for discussion and or a motion to the revised request in the presentation this evening. Do we have any discussion?
I'm ready for a motion.
Please make a motion.
Yes, motion according to staff recommendation to go up to the 25% as suggested. Thank you.
Thank you. The motion by Director Lee and a second.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, I'll second that by Director Mekachek. I see a hand raised by Director Martinez Beltran. Is there a question that you'd like to ask before we vote on the motion? You're okay? All right, thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Thank you. Chair Gibbons.
Aye.
Director Willie.
Aye.
Mekachuk.
Aye.
Klein.
Aye.
Hilton.
Aye.
Flagger. Yes. Schmidt.
Aye.
Sayok.
Aye.
Martinez Beltran.
Aye.
Marichak.
Yes.
Walia.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Thank you. I'll note that motion carries with Director Chua absent.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that discussion. And we now move on to item number 4. This is the new construction reach code update. This will be a presentation by Zoe Elizabeth, our Deputy Director of Decarbonization Programs and Policy. Welcome in person.
To see if I remember how to use one of these microphones not in my ear. Okay. It's wonderful to see you all. Okay. All right. So the goal of this presentation is to provide a concise summary really of your next steps to adopt REACH codes this year. You know, we've had a few presentations on REACH codes and the overall goals, and this month we're really just focusing on your next steps as we're entering the busy season. So we created this handy dandy, hopefully, checklist that you can continue to refer to as needed that lists the steps that are specific really for our board members. Some of these are already complete, which you'll see on the next slide. But the first, of course, is to attend a meeting with SVCE staff where we are briefed. We have met with each of you. To really identify your goal, the level of reach that you're interested in this code cycle. To confirm that appropriate staff in your town or city are engaged and aware of your goals. To confirm that the council info sessions and vote sessions have been agendized. And to confirm that your city manager has signed the LOI, which we're going to help you with that next step on the next slide. And then, of course, we are here throughout the process, to help with technical assistance and outreach support as needed, as well as to, answer any questions that come up. Oh, and then, of course, I forgot the most important step on this checklist, which would be to vote when it comes to you. Okay. So here is an example, or here's a list of some of the REACH code actions that have come to date. So first of all, we are really honored that all 13 of our jurisdictions are actively engaged and interested in this process. You can see that this table we've divided it on the left with the recommendation, what we call recommendations, right? So the steps that are really the foundation of this process. So the initial board meeting and staff, our initial meetings by board members and with staff, and that's happened for all 13 of our jurisdictions. We sent out letters of interest to all of the city managers to see about interest in receiving the $10,000 grant and participating in this process to bring it to vote. And we've received signatures back from all of the 13 jurisdictions. And then, of course, making sure that the items are agendized is another key step. We've heard from several staff members with that there's plans to agendize these votes, and we imagine over in the coming months that we'll be able to list those specifically. Then in addition, we have this, what we call optional support, because each of our jurisdictions has a different level of need. And so you can see here that the city of Gilroy has actually taken us up and had some direct public outreach. We participated in a community meeting and a developers roundtable. Similar in Monte Sereno, we were able to participate with the Youth Council actually just last night. And we're planning similar support in Los Altos. That level of support is available for all of our jurisdictions should you need it. In addition, there's one-on-one technical consultation directly with our consultants at TRC. So Mountain View and Sunnyvale have engaged directly with those consultants to get support, on the details of updating specific code language. And that is, available again to all of our jurisdictions throughout the summer and fall. This is just a high-level overview of the full. You've seen this chart before, right? This red line, this is where we are in the process. We've gone ahead in the list below with the milestones in orange. You see the tasks that are specific for our board members. So we're, moved past this, the define goals and engage staff, define approach and send the LOI, and now moving into the spring and summer where building officials begin to actually write the updated code language, conduct outreach as necessary for your particular jurisdiction, so that in the late summer and early fall, you move into council info sessions and voting. And of course, saving time for any potential CEC submittals towards the end of the year. And then the last thing we wanted to briefly review this evening, in case you are not aware, in addition to the support of our consultants and the outreach support, we, alongside EBCE and PCE, have developed a website that has a ton of Reach Code resources all in one place. It's really like a one-stop shop for all 3 counties, bayareareachcodes.org. And you can find videos. You might recognize some folks in some of those videos as you go through them of how heat pumps work, how induction cooking works, basics of electricity versus natural gas. And also this is where the model reach codes are. So there are now the all electric building code ordinance and as well as the reach code version of the all electric reach code are now available on the website. The EV reach code and as well as model codes on existing buildings will be coming soon. So that is kept up to date for you and your staff. There's a timeline as well as a list of all of the webinars outreach. There are the videos and notes from all of the events that we have held, as well as a list of any upcoming events that are planned. This is again to say that as well, there's the EV zoning code. And this is taking a little bit longer than the other codes, is a little more complex to decide where we're going. And that is my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
Thank you, Zoe. This is an opportunity for the directors to ask questions of staff, but I'm also thinking that during the discussion period, it would be an opportunity for board members to discuss with each other what they're doing, what what has worked well and what they might need some thoughts, how someone else has done it successfully, that kind of thing. So that's a nice possibility during the discussion period as well. So is there any questions of the staff presentation? I see none from the board. And with that, we'll go to the audience, attendees. I see no raised hands from the attendees. So let's come back to a discussion with the board. Are there any questions or discussion points from the board? I see none. I'll just offer a couple of thoughts. One of the things that the city of Campbell did last time around, and a few other cities were successful at doing, is we actually incorporated the REACH code into our regular adoption of the updated Uniform Building Code, the California Uniform Building Code. Other cities adopted ordinances, and the ordinances have to be renewed. So there is a new building code coming out that all the cities will likely be considering in the fall. And that's what we're aiming to do, is to do what we did before, update our REACH code with the building code. And the new building code has a lot of updates already into it. So hopefully that will make what we want to incorporate from the REACH code, whatever each city feels comfortable doing, whether it's new buildings or existing buildings, whether it's residential or commercial, would be what you'd want to incorporate into your own building code update. And we're still having discussions about gas cooking. That's one of the big issues. So anybody else have any thoughts? I see Director Metachek from Mountain View.
Yeah, I knew that was going to be a challenge tonight.
Thank you for that.
I was not aware that REACH codes sort of expire. And I had heard that a couple cities approached this in a way where they don't have to renew them every few years. And I heard you talking about ordinance versus putting it in the building code. But what I wasn't sure is, does one of those methods make it so we don't have to do this every few years? And which one is it? Or is it a different method?
So I'm going to ask Zoe to add on to what I'm saying. If you're incorporated into the building code, it's in the building code. And my experience is, although the building code itself has an annual, a upgrade cycle of every 3 years. Once it's in your building code, it's in your building code, as opposed to an ordinance that sometimes has a time limit on it. So any thoughts?
Yes, and so we can help you and with either approach. And we actually, on the website now, we have, we're calling it an all-electric municipal ordinance amendment. And the Morgan Hill also took this approach in the last code cycle, and with that approach, it would not need to be updated every 3 years. It's a little bit different than what Campbell did, although the impact in terms of not needing to be renewed is the same. This ordinance approach uses police authority versus the authority of the building code. And then there's also we also have the amendments to the building code should jurisdictions choose to follow the same path as they did last year.
Okay, and then you could just add to it if you wanted to, basically whenever, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that sounds really good to me. But I also, well, I'm not necessarily sure what Director Albekoga has said in terms of community outreach. I guess my perspective would be, I'm not too sure we need help with the outreach, but I think we could use help with messaging, just sort of standard ways of describing this and what we're trying to accomplish that we could leverage either as part of community outreach or just in our discussions with residents.
That's great, really helpful input. Great.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other, yes, Director Klein?
Yeah, as far as the website goes, is the goal for the website for city employees and council members? Is it for the general public? Trying to get a better idea for, and just kind of taking a quick glance through, and trying to see what the main vision or usage of that site is for.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that it's, predominantly geared towards city staff in the sense that there's a pretty deep level of technical detail there with the model codes. However, there's also a whole list of frequently asked questions and videos. So if there were members of the community that were interested to learn more about REACH codes, I think it's a great resource. There's maybe the kind of high-level messaging maybe that you're talking about, but there are the external resources that can help to think about how to answer some of the common questions that are asked about electrification.
And I appreciate that. And just taking a quick look through, is there any goal? One of the big things for if it's focused on cities and kind of city staff, it is the comparison of what other cities are doing. It might be on there. I just wasn't able to see it when I visited the site and looked at the different FAQs and all that. Not that that's the be-all, end-all, but sometimes that, let's say, pushes city staff to go a little bit farther to say, oh, I need to be as good as city X or city Y. So, and not that it's, what you have here from an informational standpoint is fantastic, which that's the main thing. But there is okay, what are kind of the different flavors of what cities have done or what cities have done previously and what their plans are, especially as you get closer to that date of what cities are proposing, I think will be important.
That's also a great point. I think that it is there, but believe that it is buried in what happened in 2019. So it's a good point, yeah.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
If I may, there is a slide number 11 in the backup slides to the presentation that kind of summarizes where the 2019 efforts ended up.
And I saw that, but I was trying to make sure that it was on the website somewhere, and I just couldn't find it. But if it's there, I think it's just highlighting that and focusing on that competitive spirit of making sure that all the cities are trying to do as good as possible as far as the REACH codes are concerned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sports-minded competition.
Exactly.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Discussion? Yes, please, Director Mekachuk.
I've got a comment, and what we did at the City of Monte Sereno was we're also aware of the water REACH codes, so we are trying to align the knowledge internally of the electric REACH codes with the water REACH codes, because we're looking at those right now. And thank you for doing the outreach to our youth commission. And what we'd like to do is leverage your assistance to work on outreach to our community members, and that's going to be, I believe, in July.
Okay.
So we're taking advantage of that resource, and we did that in the past.
Great.
That's my comment. I'm sorry.
No, that's perfect. Great. All right. So there is no action required. This is a presentation. And if there is no other discussion, we are going to take an opportunity to have board member announcements and direction for future agenda items. Is there any announcement that we need to make? I was just going to offer that I had a lot of fun and a big challenge. I was the webinar speaker for the AIA New Jersey Greenbuild Conference a week ago Friday. And it's very hard to give a 1-hour webinar with no audience. You just are looking at a screen. And I could not tell if my jokes made sense or not, but I tried. So it was great fun, and I spoke specifically about the relationship of city governments and the actions that city governments have taken to really speak to the climate change. and I provided some technical information about what purchasing energy is and what energy mix is and what it means to have a clean grid and 24/7 and what cost and time of use is. And it was well received. So it was fun, even though it was very stressful. So anyone else with any comments? And I will say my computer is dying, so if someone else has a hand raised, I can't see it. No, I think we're all okay. Yes,
I'll
please.
make another comment. I'm not sure if you saw it in the press coverage, but the city of Monte Sereno was in the San Jose Mercury News yesterday because we're redoing our annex building and turning it into a community center. And as a byproduct of doing that, what we are going to do is turn it into a showcase for energy efficiency and water conservation. And we're going to be an all-electric building. We're going to get rid of the natural gas, and we're going to have all of the elements except for an electric clothes dryer in there. So, but there'll be more news coming on that.
That's wonderfully exciting and what's something we can all share in. Thank you. And with that, we are going to move into a closed session. So at this point in time, we will ask the public for any comment on the closed session item. And then we will withdraw from this Zoom meeting, go into the closed session with a new Zoom link. And then we will return to this Zoom link and speak out on any action taken during the closed session. And we will then adjourn this meeting. So the closed session item will last, I would say, no more than 15 minutes. So for those of you that are preparing, is there anyone wishing to speak on from the public on the closed session item? Seeing none, we will adjourn this meeting. We will recess. We will recess this meeting and adjourn to a closed session item. Thank you. We are now returning to the regular Silicon Valley Clean Energy Authority Board meeting of Wednesday, May 11th. And there is nothing to report out of our closed session. And with that, we will adjourn this meeting. I thank you all for your time and attention. And, oh, I know, I was going to make one more comment. So going forward, we have a meeting in June, and we do not in July. At this time, as in my role as chair, this is what I anticipate what we will be doing with staff. We will continue to do a hybrid meeting at the June meeting. All committee meetings will stay virtual. So that will just help you with your own calendars. And then we are anticipating that when we come back in August, there may be some different changes at the state level. So staff will keep us posted, and we will make a decision accordingly at that time. Okay? Thank you all. Have a great rest of the evening. Nice to see everyone, and look forward to seeing you again.
Thanks,
and
everyone.
Garish, feel better.